Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining the Spiritist Talk series promoted by the United States Spiritist Federation every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. I am very happy to host this talk by Gustavo Rocha, who will be leading our live with the theme Turning Water into Wine. But let's all give Gustavo a very warm welcome, and please allow me to introduce him before he starts his presentation. Gustavo was born and raised in a Spiritist family. He is an advocate for the growth of Spiritism in Texas. He was a founding member of the Sunrise Spiritist Society of Texas in 2017 and has played active roles in its development over the past decade. Throughout his journey, Gustavo has collaborated with various Spiritist groups, contributing to the expansion and understanding of the doctrine in the region. Currently, he serves as the coordinator of the Sunrise Mediumistic Group, where he continues to support the community's spiritual growth. Please, everyone, take this opportunity to send your questions during the presentation using the chat window. Gustavo has reserved time to address your comments and questions once he concludes his presentation. And now, Gustavo Rocha.
Thank you, Bradley. And first of all, thank you for the federation to having me here. Uh, it's a pleasure to be here, part of this very important work that you guys have here. Thank you. So today, we're going to talk about turning water into wine, which is pretty much a passage from the Gospel of John, where he describes a very special wedding in Cana of Galilee. So looking through the Spiritism lenses, let's explore how this event, which occurred over 20 centuries ago, can help us in our progressive journey today. So bear with me while we go to this interesting journey. So in John 2, it says, on the third day, a wedding took place in Cana in Galilee. Jesus' mother was there, and Jesus and his disciples had also been invited to the wedding. When the wine was gone, Jesus' mother said to him, they have no more wine. Jesus says, woman, why do you involve me? Jesus replied, my hour has not yet come. His mother said to the servants, do whatever he tells you. Nearby stood 6 stone water jars, the kind of used by the Jews for ceremonial washing, each holding from 20 to 30 gallons. Jesus said to the servants, fill the jar with water. So they filled them to the brim. Then he told them, now draw some out and take it to the master of the banquet. They did so, and the master of the banquet tasted the water that had been turned into wine. He did not realize where it came from, though the servants who had drawn the water knew. Then he called the bridegroom aside and said, everyone brings out the choice wine first, and then when the cheaper wine after guests had too much to drink. But you have saved the best till now. What Jesus did here in Cana of Galilee was the first of the signs through which he revealed his glory, and his disciples believed in him. After this, he went down to Capernaum with his mother and brothers and his disciples. There they stayed for a few days. That's the passage in John. But now, let's try to understand a little bit of the historical background before we deep dive into the text itself. We know that Jesus used to teach according to the places and their local culture. So what we can assume, based on the picture here, that Cana of Galilee, which the exact location is debatable, it's somewhat near to Nazareth. It's coastal to the Sea of Galilee, and then we can assume it was a small village with a patriarchal structure, right, where the locals used to treat themselves like a family, like Jesus' brothers, and also the hometown of the apostle Nathanael. So based on that, we can assume that event was very familiar, right? Very special to the local people. And as we know, the Jew culture, that was a big event, which used to last days. Okay, now let's try to use our spiritual lenses, right, to see how that fits. So in the last book of the spiritual codification called Genesis, Kardec reflects about this passage, right? And then he says, this miracle mentioned only in the Gospel of St. John is indicated as being the first that Jesus had performed. And under this title is ought to have been so much to more remarked upon, but it seems to have produced very little sensation, so no other evangelist mentions it. That's a very interesting data point, right? So out of the 4 evangelists, only John, described that passage. But I would like to remind that Mary and John lived together for a while in Ephesus, modern-day Turkey, after Jesus' crucifixion. In John's gospel, Jesus on the cross says to his mother, "Woman, behold your son." And then to the disciple John, "Behold your mother." So, is it possible that during that period they lived together, Mary has confided to John details of the wedding unknown to the other evangelists? Possible. Let's continue. Admitting that things have taken place as they are reported to have done, Jesus was of a nature to elevate it, to attach himself to purely material effects. So that's very true. But in the Medium's book, we also learn about the modification of the property of the matter, rare phenomena, yet possible. Let's continue that journey. It is more rational to see it on it one of those parables so frequent in the teachings of Jesus. Probably he alluded to the wine and the water during the repast, evoking a moral lesson. So, as stated in the gospel, according to the Spiritism offered the key by which all can easily be explained. So let's revisit this passage through the spiritual lenses a little further. In the Spirit's book, we learn that in the very beginning, we call prolegomena, right, very introduction of the book, there is a message, it's written by the good spirits, and they say to Kardec, place the vine branch withdrawn. It is the insignia of God's work and unites all the material elements that best symbolize the body and the spirit. And it continues. The stone represents the body, the juice is the spirit, and the soul is the grape. Human beings refine the spirit through labor, and it's only through the physical labor of the body that the spirit acquires knowledge. So we learn the soul is an incarnated spirit. Before joining a body, is one of the intelligent beings living in the invisible world. It assumes a physical body temporarily to complete its purification and enlightenment. So God imposes incarnation as a tool to reach perfection. The Gospel of John also says, no one can enter the kingdom of God unless they are born of water and the Spirit. And here we see a reference to the process of reincarnation, where the spirit matures throughout multiple lives. Spiritual purification is not a fast journey. It's like the traditional method of stomping the grapes to produce wine. It requires time and hard work. A young wine usually contains high acidity, stronger internal tensions. As it matures, it presents reduced acidity, softer tannins, and complex flavor, turning the water into the good wine as an evolved spirit. Also, the gospel, according to the Emmanuel, he presents another take on that. he will say, on many occasions, the wine of hope runs out. We feel exhausted. We beg material tenderness, and Mary answered us, servants of God. Do what Jesus inspires you to do. And then he brings a very positive take on that passage. He says the verse of the Apostle John does not refer to painful landscapes of that time. Rather, this episode takes place at a wedding party, which is a happy event. Emmanuel also tells us that we are still in the engagement party with the gospel in our earth. Because despite of over 20 centuries that we have passed, the joy is still one of the engagement because the perfect union has not yet been achieved. In this great concert of these renovated ideas, we are humble servants, and we will struggle in the everyday life. Then we needed to remember what Mary is telling us to do. We needed to be inspired by Jesus. We needed to follow his steps, his examples. Also, in the gospel according to the Spiritism, right, we learn that the true Spiritist can be recognized by their moral transformation and by the efforts they employ in order to dominate their bad instincts. Kardec also asks the spirits, what is the best effective method for guaranteeing self-improvement and resisting the attraction of wrongdoing? And the spirits will, answer him. A philosopher of the antiquity also said, know thyself. And there's another interesting question in the Spirit's book that Kardec also poses the question, are individual own efforts enough to vanquish his or her bad tendencies? And the answer is yes. A very small effort is often all that is needed. However, it is the will that is missing. It's quite astonishing how few of us make any serious effort. So let's repeat that part. Very small effort is often all that is needed to help us vanquish our bad tendencies. Let that sink for a while. So in order for us to really turn out our water into wine, we needed to put the effort in. We needed to put the effort, the hard work, because there's no easy way. Only us can go, can make that happen. Nobody else. Inspired by Jesus, do what he told us to do as his servants. Then that's the way we're going to turn our waters into wine. And to finish here this discussion today, I like to bring a message that we receive in our, Spirits group. And that says, sunrise. The sun rises for everyone. Every day there is a dawn, whether it's beautiful and clean, dark or gloomy, due to Earth's climate, still made of heavy materials. This constant rebirth of nature is the new beginning that our beloved Father offers us daily. We are not perfect, but the chances of new beginnings are daily and constant in our lives. So, my brother, the name of our beloved center, Sunrise, says, let's practice this daily new beginning in search of our greater truth before our eternal Father. Let us be true friends, brothers, and children of our neighbor. Let us love one another. Keep peace, love, charity with our hearts. Let the sun rise within you daily. Practice the daily sunrise, and you will find inner peace and the reward of all effort in the spiritual world. That's the path for us to find our best version, to keep moving forward with confidence that tomorrow we're going to be a better wine, the wine without those internal tensions, the wine that is soft, the wine that Jesus talked to us about over 20 centuries ago. And that's what I have. And now I'm happy to take questions. Thank you.
Thank you ever so much, Gustavo, for the wonderful insights and reflections you provided us today. Everyone, please stay with us for the Q&A session with Gustavo, which will start shortly after these important announcements. The 18th Spiritist Congress, Georgia, is occurring today and tomorrow in Mableton, Georgia. The conference, entitled Divine Justice, will be celebrating 160 years of the book Heaven and Hell by Allan Kardec. It will be webcast today and tomorrow, so be certain to tune in. The 19th U.S. Spiritist Symposium will happen on September 20th, 2025 in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Save the date and join us to reflect on the evolution of consciousness, a path towards enlightenment. There will be activities for kids and teens. Registration is open. Be certain also to check out the continuing podcast-like series, Psychology and Spirituality, A Bridge to a Better Life, based on the works by Joanna Giangelis. A new episode appears every Friday at 7 p.m. It is available on YouTube and Spotify. There is a new book out, The Spiritist Review 1865 by Allan Kardec, and it is available at the spiritistbooks.us store. Also, check out the wonderful Spiritist app, Be My Hope, available from the App Store and Google Play. This app offers uplifting content in a collection of videos, daily messages, and audio materials. Download it today and be certain to tune in. There is also available 7 free professionally recorded Spiritist audiobooks, sponsored and produced by the Spiritist Society of the Carolinas. At your own pace, you can listen to Allan Kardec's foundational works on YouTube at Spiritist Society Carolinas. And lastly, on the screen, you'll note there is a QR code. If you wish to help the USSF produce more publications and promote Spiritism to everyone, please scan the QR code on screen for your donation. Now, let's start to turn our attention to your comments and questions. There's still time to send in yours, so please feel free to share your thoughts. And the first is from Eduardo Haddad. Thank you, Gustavo. Beautiful message. What should we do to prevent our internal wine from turning into vinegar?
Thank you, my very good friend, Eduardo. Very good question, right? As the passage alludes, we needed to follow, right, the teachings of Jesus. And we can use the lenses from, the Spiritism to help us be equipped, right, to be able to do just that. I like to think that we needed to also reflect, every day, what we done that day. Can we do better the next day, right? So by doing this reflection every day, like we learned from the Spirit's book, then we can adjust and adapt. Because we are still imperfect spirits, we're here to learn in order to progress. We will commit mistakes, but we put the effort, then we can make sure that we don't turn our wine into vinegar. But if you allow me to add here, it's interesting that Jesus somehow started his journey in earth with this passage according to John, where he used the wine as the symbol of the start. And by his crucifixion, he's offered the vinegar, the bitterness of the people, because they are not ready to understand his message. It is the full cycle from the wine, happiness, wedding, to the vigorous bitterness of the crucifixion, right? So I think that the only way we can do is really to find our best versions, try to be the good spiritists, and work in our moral transformation. Only that way we'll be able to make sure we don't turn our water into vinegar.
Very helpful thoughts. Thank you. And from the United States Spiritist Federation, how can we take the material events of our lives, the good and bad, and turn them into moral lessons for ourselves?
Yeah, that's what I like those two questions from the Spirit's book that, 919, what they say, know thyself. We needed to know, right, our what black spots are. We needed to know what the weaknesses are and know ourselves and be truly honest with ourselves. So we needed to make sure that we manage our tendencies through life, through the efforts that we can mitigate, right? That's the job, right? And that is very encouraging and bring me a lot of consolation, because when you look at the question 909, then they say all it takes is effort, our own effort. So I would just say that charity starts with out charity. We need to understand that we are impure spirits. We need to understand that we're here to evolve. Therefore, we do have weaknesses. Accepting that and trying to understand what they are and using the tools that Jesus and the Spiritism provide us, then we can make sure that we are the best versions of ourselves, respecting the neighbors, loving each other, and really trying to mitigate our bad tendencies. That way, we become a good spirits, right? It's interesting that in the same chapter, in the Gospel according to the Spiritism, which chapter 17, it says the perfection, right? And we get the example of what a good spirit should be. And then he started there showing us what we can become. And after that, they say a good spirit, which is the one that is striving to become better, but not quite there yet. And in the very end of the chapter, the structures of the Spiritists, they talked about the men of our time, because we are in a society which is not perfect society. We are learning from each other's. And through that interaction, right, with each other, that we will evolve if we put that charity and the effort into play. So I think that's how we can use our experiences here, mentioned as material events, the interaction with our society, with tools and hints about things that we needed to do better. And then we go, to bed and you put your head on the pillow, and then you ask yourself, have I hurt anyone today? There is anything that I could have done better? And if that's so, you have the chance, because as the Sunrise poem says, the sun rises every day. There's always a tomorrow what we can do better.
Very, very good thought. Thank you. From Daniel Santos, does Spiritism consider this particular miracle as a literal physical event, or could there be a symbolic or allegorical interpretation?
Yeah, thank you, Daniel. As we see in the Genesis, I mean, Kardec always presents the hypothesis first, and then drive us through his rational, thought process. And in the end, he says it's more likely that is a allegory, is a parable that didn't happen physically. And I tended to agree with him, but it's up to interpretation. If you think about it, he didn't exhaust the matter, but he tells us that which is more rational and probable is that Jesus used the water and the wine as a symbol to teach us this lesson.
Understood. From the Funch 4, what do you think you suggest to the younger generations to turn water and wine in their everyday life?
The younger generations. I mean, interesting question, right? So bear with me here while I try to elaborate. what we see here on Earth right now is that we are evolving as a planet. We spiritists, we believe that we're moving from, you know, troubles and expiation to a renovation phase. And during that, better spirits are reincarnating right now to help us to go to the next level. If you see the new generations, they are very tech savvy, they are smart, and moral improved. I think that we have a lot to learn from them actually. If you work with young people, they are amazing these days, right? And then I think this is the beauty of the law of society, what we all collaborate to each others. Oldest and younger people, when you live is a big family, this big lab, this big school, which is Earth, we all learning from each other. And don't forget one very basic concept of which is the familiar nuclear, right? We work as a family. And then you have your father figure, your mother figure, and your closer friends. When they're very young, we have the ability to shape and form those young and then leverage what they have to offer us, right? So incentivizing the positives and helping them to mitigate the negatives. I think that's what I think.
Very, very good. Very helpful advice. And from the U.S. Spiritist Federation, we have a question. How do we know or sense if we've done enough to improve our moral efforts?
That's a very good question, and that's an everyday, exercise. We also always needed to do that exercise, right? Question ourselves, observe the effect of our behavior in others. And then this don't forget the golden rule, right? We never should do to others what we don't want others to do to us. So I think that we keep this exercise asking ourselves, have I done the best I could at that particular moment? And if we haven't, accept that fact and work with it. Don't get stuck in guilty or remorse. Like Paul, we needed to move forward. And that's the way that we're going to make sure that we can improve ourselves and therefore getting better intellectually and morally.
Very good relation to Paul. And we have some wonderful comments here from Funch4. Thank you for the beautiful message. I felt really inspired.
Well, thank you.
And uma passagem, por favor. Let's turn water into wine. Congrats for that wonderful speech, Gustavo.
Thank you.
And from Pedro Enrique Martins, very good. And also from Giovanna Brea. And from Daniela Warnick, thank you, my love, for the beautiful speech. Love you. And Rose Suarez, comparing our way to interact with those in need. Wonderful. So much wonderful. Thank you, Gustavo. And many thanks to everyone who watched today's Talk Live and those who have been following our weekly Spiritist Talk series. Now, we will not have a talk next Saturday due to the Memorial Day weekend, but we will return on Saturday, May 31st with Yasko Arakawa speaking on the topic Heaven and Hell. What makes a happy passage to the spiritual world? Gustavo, before we close the live, would you please offer up a prayer?
Absolutely. Thank you, Brad. Let's close our eyes in the heart, full of gratitude for the opportunity to be here incarnated, for the people that surround us, incarnated, the spirits, our family. Let's be thankful for the Spiritism that can help us understand our struggles, give us the tools to improve ourselves. Let's have the courage to change the things that we can do and the resilience of the things that we can't. But let's be sure that there's no struggle without reasoning. And if we needed to go through these difficult times, it's because it's better for us. Because Jesus is looking after all of us. Let's be our better selves. Let's be our better husbands, wives, sons, fathers, neighbors, colleagues. Let's strive to do our best version of ourselves. And by doing so, we'll be a better society member. And we're going to help Jesus and his wonderful team of good spirits that are supporting us for so many years to help this planet to move into this next phase. With that said, with all the protection that you received, I thank you for this moment. So be it.